Hey, but before we're going to come back to some of these other headlines, Dave, because our featured guest for tonight is in the house. We didn't even put him in the green room, although what color is that carpet again, DJ? I don't even know. Steve, what is that carpet? The brown room, although I call it a green room. But Mike Hall is our guest on the Wise Guys. During his 2 years at BYU, he averaged 13.3 points and 3.5 rebounds a game. He is not only one of my favorite basketball players ever to play at BYU, but one of my favorite people in any sport to play at BYU. He's made the transition in his afterlife. I don't know why I use the word afterlife, but his after basketball life to now be involved in the football program, all of the athletics program, but involved in football. We're so glad to have Mike here. It's our pleasure to welcome Mike Hall to Wise Guys. Mike, welcome in, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
We've got me here. Dave is down. He is single-handedly on the road with the baseball team, and he's play-by-play and the analyst on the road with the baseball team. He asks himself a question, and then he answers his own question.
That's good talent right there.
Yes,
that is a talented man right there.
It takes some talent. So let's start with this because Dave already teased this when we were coming in. BYU Air Force 2004. Dave and I are calling this game, by the way.
Yeah.
You may remember that. The dunk of all dunks. It was the ESPN play of the day. Do you remember that play?
I do remember. It's hard not to. I think that's the only reason people remember me around here is that dunk right there.
Yeah, I did mention that you were also very well known for defense as well, right. and you could score, you could defend, you could do it all. But I'm afraid when you have a highlight like that, then that's just kind of your brand.
You know what? That defense isn't necessarily I don't know if I'd say the sexy thing to do.
Right.
But dunking is. The offense is all that's what people want to see, man. No one loves the defensive part of it.
Mike, and it's so great to have you with us. I wish I was there to be there in person. But when you made that move and you got past Jake's show, it's not a fast break. It's a set. You got 5 Air Force guys down there playing defense. When you swoop into the lane and get up to throw that down, what point did you think, I am going to throw it down? And were you surprised that they kind of got out of your way and let you do it?
Yeah, I think, if I remember right, I don't know if they got out of my way. I think my man Jake Schoaf moved a lot of people out of the way.
Which he
that might have been true.
Which he could do. And it just kind of opened up, and it was there. I was having a terrible game, too. I needed something to kind of to fix my performance that day. And that, luckily, Jake did that. He kind of helped me out. It helped my self-esteem, that's for sure, because I was not playing well. I don't remember playing well that game at all.
Well, you certainly had the explosive jumping ability to go up there and complete that play, even if Jake may have shielded 3 or 4 guys out of the way with that big old body. But we've been really anxious to get you in and talk about this basketball team this year, because we know you follow it closely, even though you're more involved with football now. What's your initial thought on this first time run through the Big 12 conference with basketball?
Man, I love this team, man. Like they play so hard. And I don't think, I like to go after the games and listen and read the coaches' comments from the opposing team and post game and pre-game. And these coaches know in this conference that it's not going to be an easy game because, we run our offense great. We guard, we defend, they're tough. Like, it's not an easy game, and I love hearing other coaches say that. I think more so just because of all the I wouldn't say people are kind of killing BYU, but finishing 13th and everything else. So I love to kind of see kind of everything turn around and saying, this is a tough team. I love watching this team. It's really fun. It's been fun for me.
The Cougars are 18-7, 6-6 in the league. Number 25 in today's AP poll. Number 21 in the coaches. Still in the top 10 in the net at 10. Ken Palm's got him 16. Lunardi still has him as a 5 seed. Mm-hmm. They're 3 games out of first, and they're 3 games out of last. What has impressed you the most about them?
Just the level of how they compete. Like, when I say they play so hard, I know I just talked about I love defense. I would hate guarding this team. I really would. I don't know if there's one guy where I'd say, I wouldn't mind guarding them. They just play hard, and every single guy is a threat. And being a defensive guy, I think that's just one hard. And think of the scouting report for other teams. I mean, that has to be tough to guard. So I've enjoyed it. I try not to go over to the annex a lot for practice. I don't want to hover, but I want to go over so bad and just watch practice. But I like to leave Pope and those guys alone. But I've really enjoyed watching this team. It's been so fun.
I think they probably would just be fine if you're like Jeff Chapman came and stayed with me a few weeks ago, and I was going over to a practice, and he said, "Can I go with you?" I'm like, "What are you asking me if you go?" Like, yes, you could. Like, you could go anytime you want. Right. And when we walked in, everybody was just so excited to see him. And I know Mark does a really good job of welcoming everybody that played back in, even though they didn't play for him necessarily, but they're part of the family. Right. You feel that, don't you?
Oh yeah, Pope does a great job. I mean, every time I see Pope, it's like, I mean, like he has a way of making whoever he's talking to feel like they're the most important person in the world. He does a good job. But I just like to leave those guys, and I like to watch them afar. Cody Figures isn't coach. He actually lives in my neighborhood, so I honk at him every now and then. We stop and chat, but I don't like bothering him so much, especially right now. But I'm dying to go over. I just need a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna go over with you. Is there a particular player that you've watched that's caught your eye this season that's impressed you more than the others on this squad?
You know what I like, and I was actually thinking about this question when I was driving over, because I figured you asked that question. And I don't know if I can really pinpoint one guy. I think everyone has their role. What I love the most about this team is the team concept. What Pope teaches those guys. They win as a team. They play defense as a team. They do everything as a team. We have and I feel like all the personalities are the same as far as toughness, as far as wanting to get down, as far as leadership. I love Dallin's leadership. I love when Foose comes back, how they, I just love every aspect of this team and how they work together as one to kind of make these teams' lives miserable. So I was actually thinking about that question, but I don't know if I have an answer.
There's just not one.
There's not one guy, because I feel like as a team, they do such a good job of kind of what they do.
For BYU basketball star Mike Hall and the Wise Guys with us tonight, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com. The 2004 Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. So this makes you an expert to answer our next question about this team's defense. Let's be honest, it wasn't good at Oklahoma State, but over the course of the season, it's been really good. What do you think of this defense? What do you like?
And I keep going back to this, so I apologize for repeating myself, but I feel like the defense plays together as a unit. I think they play together as one. Even on the man-to-man, when they're kind of guarding the guy, they do a good job of keeping guys in front of them also. So if you couple that with just great, help defense and guys being in the right spots defensively, that's a hard team to score on. And also what they do well, they score the ball so well. It's hard for a team on offense to really get in transition and get on a whole lot of fast break points if you're not getting stops on the other end. So they do such a good job offensively. I think it helps them defensively too, because you're not able to get a lot of transition points and things like that.
Specific to that Oklahoma State game, Mike, I was thinking about this during the game. I'm asking myself this question because, people sitting around me watching the game are going like, "What's going on? Why are they not covering that guy?" And I'm like, because the scout says don't cover that guy. Right. Like, because Oklahoma State doesn't shoot the ball like that.
Right.
They just don't, right? But every once in a while you get in a game where scouting report says, don't chase this guy to the perimeter. Mm-hmm. He's a 27% three-point shooter. And then the guy knocks three straight. To go under the screen on this guy, you go under the screen and he pulls up from behind the screen and he knocks down a three.
Right.
That Oklahoma State team, I'm sorry, they're not a good three-point shooting team.
Right.
But they were phenomenal the other night. What do you do when that happens? I mean, they shot lights out. It's not a good shooting basketball team. I don't know that they'll do that. They've done it a couple of times this year, but they don't do that consistently. You get in a game and you're facing a team that all of a sudden is doing things that they never do. You scouted them to defend them a certain way. What do you do?
Yeah, I think at some point, that's just kind of the game of basketball. You're going to get a team that's just hot, right? It just happens. And then hopefully there's one thing you just kind of learn from it. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the threes at Oklahoma State, they were contested. I mean, there were some open shots that those guys have, but there are some contested shots too. And a lot of those guys did a lot of stuff off the dribble shots and things like that. And unfortunately, game of basketball, we all know it happens. And sometimes you just got to take one on the head and kind of learn from it and move on. But that probably won't be the last time it happens. It is what it is, and that's one of those things you just kind of have to learn from. Hopefully, not hopefully, but if it happens again in the tournament, that the scout is a little bit more. I wouldn't even say polished, because again, I'm sure Coach Pope and Cody and those guys do a great job with the scout. But sometimes you get guys who hit shots and they're not supposed to, and it just happens. I mean, we've all had days. I'm 40 plus years old. I can go to this bat and I'm not good anymore. But there are some days where I'm just not missing.
Feeling it. You're just feeling it.
Exactly. So I think that's just kind of the game of basketball. It just happens, man. And you just got to hopefully learn from it. And sometimes you just got to hope these guys miss at some point. Unfortunately, with Oklahoma State, those guys were not missing. And they looked really, really good. And again, with this conference, man, you never know.
Because the worst team in the conference is good. And if the worst team in the conference has a great shooting night, if they shoot almost 60% from the field, and they shoot 50% from three, they can beat the best team in the conference.
100%.
Which isn't always the case. Like when Gonzaga was in their heyday, I don't care what University of San Diego shot, they weren't beating them.
Right? Exactly.
But that's different in this league.
100%. And that's why I love this league so much. It's like there's no days off. I mean, it's hard to look down the line at your schedule and say, oh, okay, we can probably get a win here, win there. Not in this conference, man. And that's why I love it. I love how competitive it is. And I love how our team is competing and showing up every day, even with guys who are injured. And, our bench is a little shorter because some things happen to some guys and things like that. But, man, the way we compete in this league it just makes me so happy. I love watching it.
Mike, answer this one for the youth of America. Is there an art to playing defense? And what did you lean on, focus on, to be such a successful defensive player?
I think to start with, defense is you got to have a want to. You got to want to guard. I think that's what if you have the desire to guard, then I think you can be a really good defender. Now, some people aren't blessed genetically and athletically enough to always stand in front of guys. But then at the end of the day, that's when you start reading scout reports and you start kind of learning the game a little bit and learning the person you're going to guard. I think for me, this sounds terrible, but I think I was a lot more I just had pride in it. I hate being scored on, and I didn't want to be embarrassed. So I think that's why I loved guarding so much, because for one, shutting the guy down. I think that was super fun. But for two, I didn't want to be embarrassed. I think my pride kicked in a little bit, and having a guy like you probably remember this, but in my junior year, Jerry McNamara against Syracuse, he had 40 against us, and I was the primary defender. I was embarrassed that whole summer, man. It was my last game. So I just don't like to be embarrassed. And I know that sounds weird, but I like guarding, for one, and for two, I think I'm really prideful when it comes to that. I just don't love being scored on. So I think just wanting to guard, and for two, understanding, the guy you're guarding, and for three, for me anyway, it's just I just didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want a guy. I didn't want to be on Sports Center. I didn't want to be the guy that they're killing on Sports Center.
You don't want to be the Air Force team.
I don't want to be the Air Force guy. So.
Hey, if this is a case so Mike has made a case for pride being a good thing.
In this case. Yeah.
In this case, pride is a good thing. Right. So BYU's coming down the home stretch now. 6 games left in the league. And that's before the tournament, obviously, and then before the big dance. They're 18-7. They're 6-6. They're right at 500 in league, which I don't know that anybody would have projected. Right. It. So 6 games left, 18-7, 6-6. How do you see this thing playing out?
Man, I have a lot of confidence in this team, especially with the way the conference is right now. It's like anybody can beat anyone. So I don't put anything past. To say I think we can, win out. But I also think that, it can happen. You never know in this conference. And I mean, and just watching Oklahoma State the other day, you never know what team's going to be hot. And I think that's been kind of the thing with this conference. Whatever team's hot that night, they win, right? I mean, you look at the Kansas games when they lost to I forgot who they lost to. I want to say they lose to.
Well, they lost to 5 guys. They lost 5 road losses.
These 5 road losses.
Hey, Kansas won the league last year and won 5 league games. I lost 5 league games,
exactly.
Right? That's
this
league.
Conference is but I have confidence in this team. I really do. And I think the rest of the last half of the season, I don't think teams are necessarily lining up to play BYU. I think they know it's going to be a hard win. And I think our guys have the confidence to know that they can go in and win all these games. So I would like to say I think we'll win out. But in this conference, man, I honestly don't know. It's so hard.
I look at they're in such a good position, 18-7. Say they went 3-3, 21-10.
Big time.
Did any of us think that in this league they could be 21-10?
Not at all.
I would be pumped with 21-10. Would you feel the same way?
100%. I'm actually really excited about where we are now, and I think going 3-3 in the next couple. Over the next 6 games, I think that'd be great. Like I said, there's a lot of doubters and haters coming into this thing, and again, I think this is the pride thing. It's like, kind of just like, look, take that. We proved you guys all wrong. So I love where the team is, and I actually think moving forward we can actually. I think more than 3.
Yeah, I
think more than 3.
I projected 4-2, but everybody thinks I'm nuts.
Yeah.
But I would take 3-3. So and our I can't remember who said. Dave said that they were going to finish 9-9. That would mean they would be 3-3. Somebody said it on the chat that they would finish 9-9. Right. So
I like 9-9. I think everyone's tired now. The Cougars looked tired the other day. You defend your home floor, you get a little boost of energy.
Right.
Defend your home floor, and you pick up a quad win against Baylor, and a legitimate win against TCU, and then you get a rematch against Oklahoma State.
Right.
Man, I'm circling those 3. Get to 9-9, you got a good seed in the tournament. Mike Hall's our guest on Wise Guys during his 2 years at BYU, 13.3 points per game. Now, you mentioned a moment ago, you guys got to the big dance in 2004, played Syracuse. Mm-hmm. You scored 17 points. You left that out. McNamara went off and did his thing, but you had 17. Right. How valuable is just reaching the big dance for a program?
I think it's very valuable. I think especially the way it is now with all the media and everything around, I think it's super valuable. I think it helps in recruiting. I think it helps all aspects of your program. And then as a player playing it, I think it's probably outside of playing professionally as far as the college level, that going to the tournament, whether it's the first round, second round, whatever case may be, I think it's such a good time. The media coverage and how they kind of treat you like, hey, like you're a king almost. So I think just for the guys to make it there and experience that, I think that is just kind of a constant confidence booster in itself. So I love the NCAA tournament. Love it. Love playing in it. I love watching. I love everything about it.
Steve Cleveland, who's your coach, he joins us next week on the show, which is cool. We always love having Cleve in the house. Dave Rose is going to join us later in March when he's feeling a little bit better. Right. Just had a little surgery, I guess, and just he was going to come on, but he's promised to come on, and we're excited to have Dave in the house. What was it like playing for Steve Cleveland? Because he had to put that program back together after that 1-25 season in 96-97. What a task that he was asked to do, but he did it, and you were part of that rebuild. Right.
I think it was nice. It was nice for me because I came in after they had a really good year, and I think Travis Hansen was the only guy leaving, so I kind of filled in his spot. So it was actually kind of nice for me because I came in with a veteran team, being a new guy. So it was actually a pretty good transition. And by that time, I think Coach Cleveland was established. They had a winning culture, and everything was kind of solid and solidified. So I think for me, it was actually it was a great transition. It was really easy for me. But that goes in with the work that Coach Cleveland did, along with Coach Rose and the rest of his assistants, just because it was, by the time I came in, it was already kind of it was just kind of going by that time.
Coaches don't like to say who their favorites are, but we know you're one of their favorites.
Yeah. Hey, I think they have said it, actually. So.
That's good. I'll take that.
Well, Mike, now you're the director of player development for Kalani Sitake's football programs. We jump all the way across the hall, maybe even a couple of buildings, and talk football for a moment as we get ready for spring practice. But what does it entail? What does the director of player development do for football?
I think a little bit of everything. Everything off the field, anyway. I think when people hear director of player development, I think they automatically assume that I'm on the field coaching things up. I'm not a football guy. I love football, but I couldn't coach. I kind of stay in my lane. But essentially, it's most things off the field. That's dealing with the players, essentially. I do a lot of the career development. Essentially, I like to tell people that I make sure these guys are doing what they have to do right now to have a really good plan B when they're finished playing football. I rarely talk to our guys about football. I ask them how they're doing. I talk to them about them, how they're doing, their development, as not necessarily players, but as people. Coach Kalani always says, he wants them to be better brothers, better husbands, better nephews, better men overall. And my job is to make sure they're doing that and give them the tools to kind of, when they're done with BYU football, NFL, whatever the case may be, they can use those things for life after football.
It's a crazy important role because we all just watch what's going on in the stadium,
right,
and don't have a glimpse into how important it is to develop young men that come out and are contributors to society. I know that's important to Kalani. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges for student athletes today? Because you deal with it.
Right. I think one of the this NIL thing, I think I don't know if I'm jealous because I didn't plan NIL.
Well, I am absolutely jealous.
but I think the NIL thing for me, I think it's kind of hurting, athletic programs because it's starting to be more about the money and less about football. So I don't love that part. I think Kalani, especially this year, we had a team meeting not too long ago at the start of January, and he really emphasized, hey, we need to make this about football. You make this about football, you win games, you do what you have to do on and off the field, all that other stuff will come. So I think he kind of sent a pretty clear message to our team this year and just said, hey, this is our focus. If you worry about that other stuff, this isn't the right place for you. Coach definitely wants to make sure our guys are taken care of, and I think he does a good job of that, and as a staff, we do a good job of that. But the focus for our guys is football. And when they're not playing football, my focus is to make sure they're taking care of their business off the field, to make sure they're, great fathers, great husbands, great, citizens, great in the community, do things like that to improve themselves, and, as men and not necessarily as football players.
Mike, how have you seen faith play a role in this player development off the field? And when I say faith, not just the predominant faith on campus, but for all these guys that come from a variety of backgrounds, how important is faith in helping them to hold this all together and try to be, like you said, try to come out of this a better person than they were coming in?
I think faith is important. To have faith is to believe, right? And to be successful in anything, whether it's life or football or as a husband, anything, you got to believe that you can do it. Our job is to make sure, they're on the right path for one, and we're also giving them the right tools to be, to believe and to be successful, and also have faith in doing that. I think Kalani already has a culture of faith that, this we believe type thing. I think that's easy. I think they know that coming into the program, but when they get here, it's our job to make sure they see that we're helping them to get to that point. And I think we have a good culture of that right now.
You experienced all of this yourself. You came in, you were a student athlete here. Yeah. How's your experience as a student athlete helped you move into this role? And it really, the way you've explained, it doesn't matter that you played basketball. Right. You can work with football. You could work with any sport just because of your experience and what you're teaching these young men in the football program. How did that experience you had help you to help these guys?
I think it's really important to have someone there who actually lived it, especially when I came here and played basketball at BYU. I wasn't a member of the church. I wasn't a member. So I think that experience, and then I end up getting, baptized, and now I am a member of the church. So I think I can kind of relate to our guys on both sides of it. Also, I like to have real conversation with our guys. I don't like to sugarcoat things. There's conversations we have, and they're real conversations. And I sometimes the guys love me for it, and sometimes they don't. But I hopefully in the long run they appreciate it. The fact that I just care about our guys. The wins and losses, obviously that's important. We got to keep our jobs. But at the end of the day, I care about them as individuals. And if I feel like guys aren't doing what they're supposed to do to be successful here at BYU or in this community, then I don't have a problem with calling them out on it. But I think living in Provo and going to BYU, I think my experiences kind of gives me a little bit of street cred.
Street cred's the right word for it.
To kind of have those conversations. So I think my relationship with our players are really good just because of that. I spent my first year last year just kind of just because I have a title, I didn't want our guys to trust me because I have a title. But I spent that first year trying to really get to know those guys and letting these guys know I'm here to take care of them. I think this year the relationship is there, so now I'm able to have a lot more meaningful conversation. I think they trust me a little bit more.
That's great stuff. Hey, Dave, I was thinking that This Cougar Board question for the week is a good one for Mike to help us with, because this is a hard one. It's a hard one to answer. Should we throw this out for all three of us? Let's do that. So I've got the Cougar Board question of the week here. If you're not familiar with Cougar Board, it's the largest online community of BYU fans, thousands of posts daily. The question is based on a post by JReed191, one of their users. He posted, hey, Bart Torvik gave us an adjusted defensive efficiency rating for Saturday's game of 134.3. And for those of you who don't know who Bart Torvik is, he's a metrics guy, right? So that is the worst rating BYU has had since at least the 07-08 season when he started tracking data. It's even worse than the December 2018 game against Weber State, where we gave up 113 points. It's also the worst defensive team in the nation. It says the worst defensive team in the nation is Mississippi Valley State. They're currently 0-25. They've only had 3 games all season that were rated worse defensively than what BYU did on Saturday. So the metrics are like, this was a disaster.
Right.
So his question with all of that is, what went wrong on defense on Saturday? That's a lot of build-up to what went wrong on defense. I'm like, man, I'm going to have Mike help us with this one, because this isn't an easy one.
I think when teams that are hitting shots, they're just hitting shots. I don't care what you do defensively. When the guy's hot, they're hot. Like, I mean, how many times have we watched in any game at any level where there's a kid? My son had a high school basketball game the other day, and the other guy on the other team had 42. He was hot. It is what it is. You know what I mean? So I think that actually can expose some defenses and allow people to have some questions and things like that. I do think at this point too, and this is an excuse for our guys, but this is a long season. This is a hard conference. Guys are traveling, and we're traveling a lot more than we've done. Again, I don't want to make any excuses for anyone, but I think these games take a toll on you at some point. And traveling and things like that, and coupled with guys hitting shots, it happens, man, and it really does happen. I was watching, I forgot who I was watching today. But again, there's the other guy on the team who got hot, and that defense looked poor.
Yeah,
it happens. So I've been on the Brown end, and I was a defensive player of the year, but there was guys I had to guard who just got hot, and it happens a lot. So again, that's not an excuse, and I didn't break down the film or anything, but it's all part of it, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like you go back, you look at the film, you say, hey, next time if we get somebody like this, maybe we make this adjustment. So you do learn from it, and you mentioned that earlier.
Oh, for sure.
But there's a reason why nobody goes undefeated. Right? And when's the last undefeated national champ? Dave, you mentioned this the other day to me. It's been
Indiana. It's Indiana in 76, I think it was.
So nobody's gone undefeated since 76. Exactly. There's a reason, because at some point in the season, even if you're the best team in the country, you lose a game because somebody just shoots it great, right? Yep. And I'm not saying that BYU couldn't do, because they did look a little lethargic at times, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe they could have been there on the catch a little more. But all the other metrics in that game, like they didn't turn the ball. Like there's some other games they lost where I'm like, man, they need to handle they need to take care of the ball. Right. They turned it over 17 times, and the other team had this much. They handed them the game because of this. They didn't do what they dominated an offensive rebounding margin. They only turned the ball over 8 times. So they did all the other things. They didn't shoot it well, and the other team shot it lights out. Way better. BYU shot way worse than they ever do, and that team shot the best they've shot all season long.
Right.
That's a formula to lose. You almost feel better about a game like that because you can just go, okay, aberration. Right. We got to get back to shoot. We got to be confident. We have to throw that one away because you just can't think, man, are we going to shoot bad like this?
Right.
In football, we had a game in 1982. We were playing in the Holiday Bowl against Ohio State. Sometime in the third quarter, I was like, we need to do a running clock because if they might score 100 on us today, right?
Right.
But I remember all of us thinking, how did the wheels fall off on this thing? We're way better than this, right? They're not that much better, but just nothing went right. We just couldn't do anything right. But we had been so good and had a track record of winning that we just chucked it up to, well, that's an aberration.
Right.
That's not how we play. The wheels came off. And we just lined it back up the next season and went 11-1 and went 13-0 the next season. And, it's just like, no, that's not how we play. We just throw that one away. Next time we played them, we lost 10-7, which was very frustrating. Right. and the Citrus Bowl. But I feel like that's the parallel in football. There's games when the wheels just come off.
Right. And I feel like that's every sport. There's always a game where you're just like, man, I don't know. And when it rains, it pours, right? Like when Oklahoma State were making shots, all of a sudden that's when we had a turnover or a missed block out or something, it just kind of all happens. And you're just, as a player, you're just like, man, I thought I was playing hard, but when you go back and look at the film, it's like, maybe I wasn't playing as hard.
And sometimes I think when you've got a scout, and I want to hear your comment too, Dave, but you have a scout on a team and all of a sudden they knock down like their first 9 shots. You're like, wait, this is not supposed to be a good shooting team.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of discouragement sets in. You don't even realize that maybe you're going like, what is going on here? And you start to question what you're doing. And maybe you don't play with as much aggressiveness as you need to climb back in that thing when it's just so surprisingly out of the ordinary. Right. So there's some of that too. What's your thought on all this craziness, Dave?
I think you just sometimes have a bad day, and that's just all that it is. Iowa State had a bad day when they came to Provo, got beat by 16 points. They're now first place in the Big 12, and they're ranked number 6 in the country. Iowa State. So they probably look at Provo going, what the heck happened to us out there? We should have won that game.
Exactly.
And they'll get a chance to pay back when BYU goes over to Ames. But there's a team that got beat by BYU that probably feels the same way BYU feels, having gotten beat by Oklahoma State, which means, and Mike, we're going to hit you up with 5 questions in just a second and get you out of here, but it means tomorrow's game is so important because a win at home against Baylor, who happens to be ranked number 11, can forgive a whole lot of misdoing. And certainly no one's going to be thinking about Stillwater. If BYU can win this week, and you go from 25, you can jump right back into, you beat Baylor, who's number 11, you can jump back to number 17. And who knows what it'll do for your net, which is already number 10. So that being said, Mike, what are the keys to tomorrow night's game against Baylor for BYU to win?
First of all, we kind of eliminate the things we did on Saturday against Oklahoma State for one. I think for 2, just throw confidence, feed off the grit, and then I think don't change up what we do. I think let's be BYU. I see comments, live by the 3, die by the 3. Yeah, that's what we do. But we'll hit those more likely than not, I think. I think we just continue to listen to coach and kind of use our game plan and be BYU. And I think being BYU is the reason why we're top 25 right now is just because we're BYU. We've been BYU all this time throughout the season. I'd say we don't change up doing what we do. But like I said, remember that, it's like Oklahoma State, you have bad games. It happens. Let's move on from that. Let's learn from that, and let's go back to being BYU and playing good basketball, moving the ball, knocking down shots, playing good defense, rebounding, and I feel like everything will take care of itself.
Yeah, Weston Birch on the chat says, I think that BYU's performance on Saturday was an anomaly. I'm not too concerned. ... Yet. He says, yeah, right.
I agree.
So, and you want to what? Oklahoma State comes back here, don't they? I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So Oklahoma State, that's right. They come back here. Last game of the regular season. And the ESPN matchup predictor has BYU with a 93.4% chance to win at home against a team that
if we
just
don't
beat
play
them.
any defense in that one, they'll beat us too.
Right.
I think we'll play better at home.
Right.
Everyone does.
And they won't make their first 9 shots or whatever craziness it was. And BYU will defend a little bit harder. And the runs will be a little shorter for them because the crowd will get into it. BYU's runs will be a little bit longer. Right. And I would expect that BYU will beat Oklahoma State at home. And they won't dramatically change the game plan. Now, they may have caught some tendencies like, hey, when Small comes over the top, this next time, let's go over the top of the screen with them. Right? They'll make some adjustments this next time for guys that surprise them. But it won't be a dramatic change. I'm glad to hear you say they just need to be BYU, Mike, because we hear Mark Pope say that all the time. I just tell the guys, we got to be who we are. And we'll lose some games in this league, but we're going to win a lot of games in this league. But we got to be consistent with who we are, and we got to be confident in that.
Right. And I actually love that. I mean, how many times have we had this conversation where we lose a game, everyone's upset, and we bounce right back, and we're back in the top, 15. It happens. It happens to everyone. Look at Kansas. Look at any of the top teams across the country. It's happening all over the country. But the difference between the really good teams and the bad teams is I think they overcorrect and forget to be themselves. And I think Coach Pope is right. You go in there and be BYU and play like we can. And I think, like I said, we'll play a much better, especially at home. I
Yeah.
think it's really hard to play here for opposing teams, but remember who we are and stick to that game plan. And I think we'll be fine. I really do think we'll be fine.
But Mike, that's what makes baseball season so exhausting because you've got like 154 games. So potential for a lousy day or a good day, 154 times. And a lot of them are back to back. It's an emotional swing to be a fan. College basketball, they play a lot, but not as many. But you're right. When the team wins, everything's great. When the team loses, everything's just the opposite. And a win tomorrow night has Cougar Nation right back up feeling like, I think we can get to a 4th seed.
Right.
That's the beauty of the Wise Guys and all the things we do at BYU TV is the audience is just so emotionally involved that probably drives coaches nuts, might bug players, but it fuels a sports department and a following like BYU's because we all feel better about everything when we win.
Oh man, isn't that the truth?
That is the truth.
Some more from the chat. So Jonathan Ashcraft is saying, "Hey, I love the takes from Mike. So great to hear from you. They're so grateful that you're on." Weston Birch said, "OSU is the game that BYU shouldn't have lost. But perhaps KU or Iowa State will be the win that BYU gets that they're not supposed to get, which absolutely could happen and wouldn't surprise us." And then Al Ruiz from Mapleton says, "Hey, let's beat Baylor and UCLA." He's referring to men's volleyball this week, right? I agree with that. I agree with that one, Kemp. And then we will all know a lot about more. Kevin Rose says we'll know a lot about this team with how they respond against Baylor at home tomorrow night, which I agree with that as well. Good point, Kevin. So some good contributions from the chat tonight. Well, Dave, should we get to 5 questions for Mike? And
yeah, Mike, all this has led up to what's about to happen. So the pregame show is over, and now we're going to get right down to the good stuff. You ready?
Like it.
And these are, you don't think about them, just come up with it.
Okay.
So your favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie is probably, it's a basketball movie from the 90s called Above the Rim.
Oh, I remember Above the Rim.
Old school. The language isn't great, so make sure you watch a clean version, but I love that movie. Old school.
Do you know? I want to know from the two of you. Do you notice this? Because you just said that, right? So my wife and I will be like, "Man, movies these days have so much bad language and these themes." Like, as our kids are growing up, and then we'll go, "Oh, we need to watch that movie we loved when we were like freshmen at BYU," and we go back and watch it. And we're like, "I don't remember when this language was in this,
Exactly.
or this. I don't remember that theme being in this."
Right.
So
That's why I love when Moneyball comes on BYU TV. Just turn it up and let it go. All the words are out.
They got it all edited. Or you can watch it on, some of the airline versions are great too.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, as we get a little older, we get a little more sensitive, I think. But Above the Rim, I remember it.
Love that
I remember
movie.
it. So, okay, your favorite singer or band?
Favorite singer? I'll go with band. I'm a big R&B guy, so I'm a Boys to Men guy.
Oh,
90s R&B.
man.
90s R&B.
That's 2 old school answers next to that.
I'm
Boys
old
to
soul.
Men is good stuff. They came and performed at the Sarah a couple years ago.
I was there.
They were phenomenal.
They were great, yes.
They still had all those tight harmonies. They were so good.
I loved it.
What's your favorite song of theirs?
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
Oh, I love it. On Bended Knee.
On Bended Knee. I'm singing it in my head right now. I don't
Yeah.
want to embarrass myself or you guys.
We were about to. Like, it's so hard to say goodbye.
Love that song.
Yeah.
Shed a tear.
Yeah,
Mike
it's
sings
so
on
good.
every show, Mike.
Yeah.
So
If I don't sing something, it wasn't a show. It
I
wasn't
love it.
a
I
show.
love
So,
it.
okay, next, this is very important.
Okay.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Ooh, favorite breakfast
think about
cereal.
it.
You know what? This is gonna sound old school a little bit too, but I'm a big Honey Bunches of Oats guy.
Oh, you know
I
what?
love Honey Bunches of Oats.
All right.
I'm not a big.
Isn't that
sugar
what
guy.
Kristen Kozlowski just said last week? Honey Bunches of Oats?
I think so.
Yeah.
Feels like it.
Former BYU women's basketball
Yep.
great, Kristen Kozlowski. So her, I think, Brody, her son's the #1 rated basketball recruit in the state right
he's
now.
a good player.
Really good. So, and she feeds him Honey Bunches of Oats as well.
She knows what she's
working.
doing. She
Yeah,
knows
it's
what she's
working.
doing.
So, your favorite BYU moment, and it doesn't have to be on court. It could be anything at BYU that was your favorite moment.
My favorite BYU moment, for me, it'd probably be on the court. There were so many great moments at BYU for me. I don't know. I would say my junior year, that season was really fun. We went to the tournament. We won some big games. We won some close games. I just love that. Oh, I guess so. Also, when I was director of basketball operations during the Jimmer years, that was pretty fun. That was exhausting, but that was really fun.
I was just texting Jimmer today about a couple of things, but that was fun for all of us. That Jimmer time, and you were involved back then too.
That was fun. Exhausting, but really, really fun.
Yeah, that was fun. So cool. Yeah, that junior year was a magical year for you.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun year, man.
Okay, this probably is the most important one. The favorite advice you've ever gotten from Tara, your wife? Because we know she grounds you, keeps you grounded.
100%. I would say be Mike. Be Mike. I'm not good at trying to be someone else, be Mike. And I think she told me this when I was going through my transition of joining the church. And, there's some little fears there saying, I won't be able to be myself, blah, blah, blah. Be Mike. Be Mike. The Lord knows you. So I think that's probably the best advice ever. Because it's easy. I know how to be me. That's the easiest thing I know how to do.
Did you ever accuse her of plagiarizing Michael Jordan when she said, be Mike?
Be like Mike. But she didn't tell him to be like Mike. She told him to be Mike.
Yeah, but I'll take the like Mike too. I'll try that. I came up short with that one. That's for sure.
Well, that is great advice for everybody. And I love that as you were investigating the church and whether or not you were going to join, for her to just say, no, Lord knows who you are. Be who you are. That's who the Lord loves everybody for who they are. And like the Savior meets us where we're at, right?
Simple.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yep. Cool. Very cool.
So great having you with us, Mike, tonight. Mike Hall, Director of Player Development for the football team, and one of the great defenders and still owner of what still might be the best dunk in school history. You only had a couple good ones, but yours was phenomenal, and we were happy to be on the call. Thanks for coming tonight.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate that.
So glad to have you here, and so glad to have you working with our football athletes. So
it's been fun. I love it.
We love it. So thanks, Mike.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And this is so casual. You can just get up and go whenever you're ready to go. So and you can walk through the green room that is actually a brown room.
It's nice in here, man.
On your way up, and you can stay as long as you want to. So
I appreciate you.
It's
guys.
so
Thank
good
you.
to have you with us, Mike. Thanks so much.